The Philadelphia Eagles have done it again as Howie Roseman strikes another mid-August trade for a receiver, but this one has Eagles fans scratching their heads. Why did they do this trade? What could it mean for the future? We will talk about all the trade details, break it all down, and a whole bunch more right here on A to Z Philly. But welcome into the show. I am RB, and we have some breaking news per Adam Schefter. A mid-Sunday afternoon trade to announce as the Eagles are acquiring wide receiver John Metchie from the Houston Texans per source. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I just have to say, Howie Roseman is an absolute psycho. This guy must sit in his house or in his home office, whatever, on the weekends for 10 hours a day, just researching guys and trying to upgrade the team and just finding every little way to improve this roster. He's the best at what he does for a reason. Just another trade that I could not have seen coming out of thin air, and the Eagles acquire another wide receiver. Now, we got a few more details here from a Texans reporter who said the Texans will be swapping day 3 picks with the Eagles and receiving tight end Harrison Bryant for wide receiver John Metchie, but it gets even crazier. Wait till you hear this. Per Tom Pelissero, he says time is a flat circle. The Eagles and the Texans reacquire their own 2026 draft picks exchanged in the C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade as part of today's deal that sends John Metchie to the Philadelphia Eagles. So if you go back a couple months ago, the trade that really a lot of us did not like, they trade away C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They didn't really get much back, right? They got Quinyon Green, and they go out and they trade a 6th-round pick and they get a 5th-round pick. Essentially, in this deal, the Eagles just flip-flopped their picks back to what they were. So the Texans get their 5th-round pick back, the Eagles get their 6th-round pick back, and the Eagles get a former 2nd-round wide receiver who the Texans essentially did not want anymore. As Tom Stakes here says, though, there could be one underlying question that needs to be answered, and that is this. Is A.J. Brown going to be healthy for week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys? I know we're a couple weeks out, but AJ has been dealing with a hamstring injury. We've seen him here and there. We saw him at the live practice, but he hasn't really been practicing that much. So is AJ's injury worse than they are leading on? That is something to keep in mind, and that could be a realistic possibility in this situation. But even more so, I think Howie Roseman is just obsessed. And here is what I think is going on here. The Philadelphia Eagles look at a situation around the NFL where the Texans have drafted a couple young rookies and John Metchie is going into the last year of his contract, and they simply wanted to get rid of him. They wanted to salary dump him. And I think Howie Roseman is an absolute psycho, and he knows this roster is so super talented that in the middle of August, on the middle of a Sunday, he is finding ways to upgrade the competition at wide receiver 4. And in return, all he had to do was give up the 4th tight end on the roster who's definitely not making the team, who's getting outplayed by Kylan Granson in training camp, and also reverse the 3rd-day draft picks that were swapped in the C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade. So essentially, the Eagles give up nothing to do this. They get a former 2nd-round wide receiver who still has some potential. And like we always say, it's never a problem to have too much depth on the roster. Also, John Metchie is a former teammate of DeVonta Smith at Alabama, so that boosts team morale as well. Howie Roseman does it again, almost the same way he did it last year with Jahan Dotson. As Jordan Schultz says here, they have actively been trying to trade John Metchie for over a week. The Eagles end up getting him. Howie Roseman did something similar a year ago, almost to the day, when he traded for Jahan Dotson. And if you remember when that happened, everybody said, well, he's a former 1st-round pick, and he hasn't played well, and he's not good. Well, Jahan Dotson played pretty damn well in his role for the Eagles and helped them win a Super Bowl. And it's pretty funny that Jahan Dotson and John Metchie are both from the same draft. Jahan Dotson was a 1st-round pick, and John Metchie was a 2nd-round pick. And when you look at this thing overall, both of those guys are essentially going into the last year of their rookie deals. John Metchie actually has a higher cap hit and base salary. So for the people out there who are saying, well, the Eagles might now trade Jahan Dotson, or they're trying to get ahead of trade or having to get rid of him next year. Well, John Metchie's in the same type of situation. So I think this is just a little move in the margins for Howie Roseman to add more depth. You have the AJ injury lingering, and he's just saying, how can I make this team better? And he is improving the competition at wide receiver 4. That is how good this Eagles roster is. Now, again, let's talk about John Metchie. Like I said, former teammates with DeVonta Smith. You know, Jalen Hurts a few weeks ago said that Howie needs to go get more SEC guys, and he's been a big advocate of that. John Metchie played at a big program in Alabama. He was a pretty productive receiver, and unfortunately in his rookie season, he had to deal with a terrible illness. He was actually battling a leukemia, and it was a very unfortunate circumstance, a very sad story, but was glad to see him bounce back after that and be able to get back out on the field. He's played the last 2 seasons for the Houston Texans. He played 16 games in 2023, 13 games last year, and he had 254 yards and a touchdown last season. He also played in the playoffs. Now, again, this isn't like some franchise-changing move. This isn't like a move that's going to put him over the top or, you know, this is just a massive blockbuster trade. I don't want to overreact here. Simply put, John Metchie has not produced that much in the NFL. He hasn't been that good, but he's a little speedy guy, 6 feet tall, 195, can move all around, pretty good route runner, still has some issues that he needs to work on and improve. But you're getting a former second-round pick just the same way you got a former first-round pick for essentially nothing. You gave up way more to get Jahan Dotson, and if Dotson does indeed move on after this year, who knows what the future holds for Metchie? Well, Dotson's going to have a lot bigger of a market than a guy like Metchie. So I think in the near future, this is just an upgrade with depth. And if we look at a video from John Metchie this past week at Houston Texans training camp, they said he was having the best camp of his career so far, and here he is against one of the best lockdown corners in the NFL, Derek Stingley. Let's take a look. Just completely beats him on the route, leaves him in the dust. We're talking about, again, one of the best corners in the NFL, and here's another play that he had against Derek Stingley at Texans training camp. This one was a little bit closer, but still was able to shake him a bit. Nice catch there on the back end. And John Metchie producing, right? You know, Howie's like, why not go upgrade? You know, you look around the league and you look at what Howie Roseman has been able to do, picks up Jacorian Bennett. I think Howie has really good relationships with these other GMs, and he analyzes these situations. He probably, you know, is in these conversations where the Texans are trying to shop John Metchie, and they're like, look, we have a pretty solid wide receiver room. We don't need them. And Howie Roseman's like, oh, well, did you watch Harrison Bryant catch these balls yesterday against the Cleveland Browns? And obviously, you know, we all know it wasn't like a serious game and the offense was terrible yesterday, but Howie Roseman just knows how to sell these things to different GMs, and I love it. The Eagles wide receiver room now includes A.J. Brown, DeVonta Smith, Jahan Dotson, John Metchie III, and Johnny Wilson. Also, keep in mind, they said that the Niners were trying to acquire John Metchie, so maybe the Eagles offered a little bit more and were able to, you know, kind of sway them away and, you know, pull Metchie before he went to another NFC team. But nonetheless, you add Darius Cooper and Anais Smith to this list here, and the Eagles have some really good competition for that wide receiver 4. It seems like Johnny Wilson has kind of separated himself, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen, and now they have a week or two to really get things moving here and see what Metchie can do. But overall, I just like the fact that Howie Roseman continues to find ways to improve the roster however he can. This move makes the Eagles roster better. I'm not saying he's a game changer. I'm not saying he's going to play it all for the Eagles, but right now they are better than they were yesterday. Those are the little types of trades in the margins that separate the good from the great, and Howie Roseman continues to do them. Now, the final question is, will something else happen after this? Will a subsequent move take place that will kind of make this make a little more sense? Those are the questions. We'll see what the answers are. Give me your thoughts down below. What are your reactions to this trade? Do you like the addition of another wide receiver right now? What do you think this means for the Philadelphia Eagles? Give me your thoughts down below. And as always, appreciate everybody for tapping in. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.